IMF is offering to help Ukraine, but of course there's a price to pay.
You're right there, Claire. Hi there, everyone. The International Monetary Fund has pledged between $14 and $18 billion to help Ukraine. The money's meant to boost the country's government and also its battered finances. In return, the IMF is asking for economic reforms, and Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk says they're painful but necessary. Jennifer Lush has more.
He's dubbed his government suicidal because of the deeply unpopular measures it has to take. But Ukraine's new Prime Minister says securing an International Monetary Fund loan is absolutely essential to staving off bankruptcy.
If these laws are not accepted, we predict default, and we predict a 10% decrease in GDP.
The IMF has pledged a $14 to $18 billion bailout package for Ukraine. It's a boost for Kiev's government, which has been struggling to stabilize the economy after months of political turmoil. But the deal comes with strings attached. Ukraine must stop clinging to a currency peg that has seriously depleted central bank reserves and kept the hryvnia at an artificially high level. It must also tighten its belt, with a target of reducing the budget deficit by 2.5% of GDP by 2016. But what's likely to be the most painful condition for households is a cut to its energy subsidies, a move that'll see domestic gas prices rise by 50%. Ousted President Viktor Yanukovych refused to take this step, but economists insist there'll be help for the hardest hit.
The poorest will be supported by the government, and that will ease the effect of the IMF plan.
Ukraine's finance ministry says it needs $35 billion over the next 2 years to avoid default, and the IMF's pledge goes some way to achieving that figure. The EU and Japan have already promised further aid, the total amount of international assistance reaching around $27 billion.
And we're going to move from Ukraine to Russia next. That's where President Putin says he wants to create a Russian payment system to rival Visa and MasterCard. It follows an American decision last week to sanction a bank that's used by some of Putin's closest allies. It led to Visa and MasterCard suspending services to customers of Bank Russia. Russian officials have criticized the reliance of Russian banks on Western card companies, and this is what President Putin had to say.
It's a pity that some companies made a decision about some well-known restrictions. I think this will simply lead to the loss of certain market segments for them, a market which is very profitable. Well, it's not our decision. We have to protect our interests, and we'll do it.
Now, a fresh batch of data painted a pretty rosy picture of the U.S. economy this Thursday. Fewer Americans applied for jobless benefits last week, and growth in the fourth quarter last year came in higher than previously thought. Despite that, American stock indices finished below the flat line, as you can see right here, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average marginally down, the Nasdaq down 0.5%, and the S&P 500 down 0.2%. In Europe at the close, shares were a little bit more mixed, with the Frankfurt DAX gaining somewhat. I say somewhat because it was up marginally. The Moscow MySix was up 1.3%. The Paris CAC 40 and the London FTSE also lost some steam, but not much. Let's talk you through a few other stories that we're following for you. Alstom suffered on Thursday and its share price closed 5% down. It followed a Bloomberg report that the French engineering group could face one of the largest ever anti-corruption fines. The US Justice Department is currently investigating allegations of possible bribery in Asia by Alstom. The French company says it's cooperating with the probe. Qatar has agreed to buy 22 helicopters from a unit of aerospace giant Airbus. That's according to the French Defense Ministry. It also says the deal is worth nearly €2 billion. All of the helicopters would be of the type NH90. The French Defense Ministry also says Qatar will be buying 2 refueling tankers made by Airbus. And software giant Microsoft is introducing a new Office application for iPads. Microsoft's new chief executive Satya Nadella unveiled the new product himself. It's seen as a signal of where he wants to take the company. The software giant had until now tied the Office suite to its own Windows operating system. Analysts say Nadella seems more willing to break with tradition than his predecessor, Steve Ballmer. OK, with that break with tradition, I'm going to hand it back to you, Claire.
Thank you very much, Marcus Carlson, for that roundup of the business news here on France 24. Now it's time for Media